Maybe having plants in your gutters wouldn't be such a bad idea if you lived on one of those giant floating rocks from the movie Avatar. Because on Earth, this is a clogged gutter. But several thousand feet above the surface of a hostile alien planet, this could be agriculture. This could be drinking water. This could be dinner. This could be the only thing standing between a family of 6 and dehydration. Welcome to the floating colonies, a place where mankind has somehow survived for generations, despite building civilization on enormous rocks suspended thousands of feet above creatures that absolutely want to eat them. Nobody knows exactly why the rocks float. Scientists have theories: magnetic fields, strange minerals, gravitational anomalies. One researcher suggested the planet simply refuses to behave normally. His theory remains surprisingly popular. But humanity adapted, because humanity always adapts, sometimes intelligently, sometimes by tying ropes to enormous butterflies and hoping for the best. Far below the colonies lies the surface, a wilderness containing forests, rivers, minerals, animals, resources civilization could need. Unfortunately, the surface also contains approximately 47,000 known species capable of killing a human being, and another several thousand species scientists have officially classified as probably. For this reason, most residents spend their entire lives without touching the ground. Children learn 3 rules before they can even read. Stay away from the edge. Always check your harness. And if something from below starts climbing the rope, cut the rope. Immediately. Life in the colonies revolves around one terrifying fact. Everything you need is beneath you, and almost everything beneath you would like to know what you taste like. Water is the first problem. On Earth, we have lakes, rivers, wells, reservoirs, plumbing. On a floating rock, you have a roof. When rain comes, every drop matters. Rain hits rooftops. It flows into enormous gutter systems. It passes through filters. It enters giant cisterns carved into the floating stone. These gutters don't just protect houses. They keep people alive. Suddenly, this little 4-foot gutter run becomes critical infrastructure. Every downspout would be numbered. Every homeowner would know exactly how much rain their roof could collect. There would probably be an app. There is always an app. Rain approaching. Estimated collection: 438 gallons. Gutter obstruction detected. Possible vegetation. Immediate action recommended. Except vegetation creates an interesting problem, because in our world, plants growing in your gutter means something needs cleaned. Up there, somebody may have planted them. The gutters become miniature farms. Tomatoes, beans, herbs, potatoes, medicinal plants, and one strange purple vegetable nobody likes. But doctors keep insisting everyone needs to eat it. The gutter isn't clogged. It's producing. Neighbors brag about their gutter gardens. Come look at this. What? My west gutter. What about it? 3 cucumbers. 3? 3. Respect. Eventually, somebody tries growing pumpkins. This is now illegal. 200 years earlier, a man named Gerald grew a 74-pound pumpkin over his garage. He ripped 38 feet of gutter off the house during the worst drought in colony history. Gerald is still mentioned in building codes. Never grow pumpkins in elevated water infrastructure. This is known as Gerald's Law, but gutters can't provide everything. There isn't much farmland on a floating rock, so agriculture goes vertical. Gardens cover rooftops. Vines hang from balconies. Mushrooms grow inside caves. Entire farms run down the cliff walls. A farmer might start his morning by putting on a harness and rappelling 600 feet underneath his own neighborhood to harvest onions. This is considered a normal job. But the colony still needs meat. Going to the surface personally would be suicidal. So mankind reached the only reasonable conclusion. If we cannot go hunting, we will go fishing. For land animals, sky fishing. Hunters stand on platforms at the edge of the island beside gigantic reels containing thousands of feet of reinforced rope. The hook is the size of a boat anchor. The bait might weigh 100 pounds. Then they lower it through the clouds, past nesting zones, past enormous trees, down into the darkness, and they wait. Eventually, something bites. The line tightens, an alarm sounds, and 12 grown adults start screaming. We got something. Nobody knows what. That's part of the excitement. Maybe it's a 6-legged ridge elk. 900 pounds. Aggressive. Delicious when smoked. Extremely confused about why dinner just pulled it into the sky. But halfway up the rope suddenly gets heavier. Everybody stops celebrating. Because this ecosystem follows one basic rule. There is always something bigger. Something has eaten the elk. Now the children are moved inside. Armed personnel arrive, and one nervous man stands next to the emergency rope cutter. Experienced sky fishermen learn to recognize creatures by how the rope moves. Small vibration? Probably elk. Heavy pulling? Possible cliff bear. Slow, continuous tension? Unknown. Cut the rope. Rapid upward movement? Cut the rope faster, because eventually predators learned where the food was coming from. Some stopped waiting for bait. They started climbing the rope, and nobody wants to look over the edge and see a 4,000-pound reptile coming upstairs. Now we have another problem. Transportation. Floating colonies may only be 5 miles apart, but those 5 miles contain absolutely nothing. No roads, no bridges, no ground, just sky. So humanity invented airboats. Part sailboat, part glider, part cargo ship, and part monument to mankind refusing to accept obvious limitations. Early airboats relied on wind. That worked wonderfully until the wind stopped. After several merchants spent 3 weeks drifting between islands, somebody looked at a giant butterfly and had an idea that should not have worked. Tie ropes to it. The Greater Valley Monarch has a wingspan of nearly 45 feet. Nobody knows who first saw one and thought, I should attach a wagon to that. But it changed civilization forever. Modern airboats use teams of 4, 6, sometimes 12 enormous butterflies. They're beautiful, efficient, and unbelievably stubborn. If a 45-foot butterfly decides it wants to inspect a flower, your vacation is over. Different colonies use different creatures. Northern colonies prefer giant dragonflies, fast, powerful, and extremely difficult to park. Western colonies breed huge moths for nighttime travel. Southern colonies use creatures resembling flying manta rays. Some military colonies use giant hornets. Nobody visits those people unless absolutely necessary. And then there is Kevin. Kevin is not a species. Kevin is what every working-class family names their exhausted old dragonfly. Kevin has been pulling the same homemade airboat for 17 years. Kevin has one good wing. Kevin does not care that you're late, but Kevin always gets everybody home. These airboats connect hundreds of floating colonies. One island has iron, one grows grain, one controls fresh water, another raises butterflies. Another grows plants used to manufacture rope. And rope is extraordinarily important. In our civilization, rope is useful. In theirs, rope is civilization. Rope holds buildings together. Rope secures airboats. Rope supports farms. Rope catches dinner. Rope prevents people from falling 4,000 feet. Entire wars have been fought over superior rope plants. The largest was officially named the Great Cordage War. Nearly 40,000 soldiers participated. Nobody is proud of the name. Where there is trade, there are also pirates. Sky pirates hide inside clouds near merchant routes. They don't want gold. Gold is heavy. They steal water, food, medicine, seeds, rope, butterfly feed, and copper gutters, especially copper gutters. You wake up one morning and every downspout is gone. Everybody knows exactly who did it. Copper boys. Again. What did they steal? 4 downspouts. Estimated value. 300 gallons of rain per storm. Now it's a major crime. Where you live also depends on money. The wealthy live near the center of the floating island, far away from the edge. Then come markets, workshops, ordinary neighborhoods, docks, farmers, hunters, and airboat mechanics. Then civilization continues downward. Entire neighborhoods are built underneath the rock. These are called the underhangs. Homes cling to vertical cliffs. Suspended streets connect buildings. A front porch might hang 3,000 feet above the surface. Real estate agents describe the view as panoramic. Rent is somehow still outrageous. Falling is the universal fear. Toddlers wear harnesses. Playgrounds have giant nets. Tools are tethered to workers. Pets wear safety lines. And if you drop your phone, you don't go get it. That phone belongs to the surface now. Somewhere beneath the oldest colonies, there are probably mountains of lost tools, shoes, furniture, dishes, thousands of phones, and for reasons nobody can explain. One refrigerator. Naturally, teenagers eventually turned falling into a sport. They jump between islands wearing wingsuits. Parents hate it. Teenagers insist it's perfectly safe. Every generation complains. You kids don't respect gravity anymore. But the strangest discovery comes when the floating colonies finally meet humans who actually live on the surface. For centuries, people believed grounders were primitive savages. Then they discover grounders have cities, farms, advanced tools. They've domesticated creatures the sky people consider monsters. And the grounders think the floating colonies are completely insane. Imagine the first conversation. You live where? On those floating rocks. The rocks thousands of feet in the sky? Correct. And where do you get water? Our gutters. Your gutters? Correct. And how do you hunt? We fish. You have fish? No. We fish for deer. Silence. You fish for deer? Correct. And how do you travel? Butterflies. Another silence. You ride butterflies? Technically, the butterflies pull the boat. Of course they do. And at that moment, both civilizations realize something important. Neither one is normal. Yet after giant butterflies, sky pirates, hanging cities, vertical onion farms, fishing for six-legged deer, predators climbing ropes, and Kevin refusing to leave on time, one simple piece of technology remains at the center of civilization: the gutter. Simple, almost invisible, until it stops working. Which brings us all the way back here, to this tiny gutter, 4 feet of dirt, leaves, roots, and plants quietly building their own ecosystem above somebody's head. On Earth, that means it's time for a cleaning. But somewhere in another universe, on a floating rock, thousands of feet above an alien jungle, somebody could be looking at this exact same gutter, admiring his crops, checking his drinking water, watching 6 enormous butterflies drag a cargo boat through the clouds, while his neighbor lowers a 2,000-foot fishing line toward the surface trying to catch dinner. Then something gigantic grabs the line. The alarm sounds. The butterflies panic. Everybody starts running. Kevin refuses to move. And Gerald's descendants are still legally prohibited from growing pumpkins. Nature finds a way. Human beings make it unnecessarily complicated. And gutters apparently survive everything. Well, if you watch this entire video, because I was in your ear the whole time, you might as well go ahead and follow Gutters first for more.